They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but what about video? What does a whole minute of grainy CCTV footage say about the world? It's an open question that has a lot of people worried right now, especially with the internet buzzing about a mysterious video taken from a deactivated surveillance camera in Michigan on October 2024. But what do we really know about this supposed haunted library and the creepy apparition haunting it? Let's find out. This story begins in Detroit, Michigan, a city that needs little introduction. If you've never heard of Detroit before, just look up Motown or the birthplace of techno. You can't talk about Detroit without mentioning music, but today we won't. We're here to talk about a different kind of melody, namely the melody of decay. That's right. Today, we'll be taking a field trip to the ruins of the Holloway District Library. This place isn't on Google Maps anymore, but it used to be a public library located in downtown Detroit, specifically in the culturally significant Paradise Valley neighborhood. The neighborhood was founded in 1911 and became a hub for African American artists, musicians, and writers over the years. It became known as the Black Mecca, although it saw better days, much like the library that served it. Built in 1916, the Holloway District Library was a grand colonial revival-style building when it opened its doors. But after a century of neglect, it looked more like a haunted house than a place of learning. In late 2023, the Detroit City Council approved a plan to demolish the structure. But before they let the wrecking ball loose, they wanted to make sure it was empty. We don't know who made this next call, but someone notified the police that the library was still being occupied by a few squatters. Now, technically, this building wasn't supposed to be occupied by anyone, let alone squatters. So a police task force called in to conduct an overnight search. You see, Detroit had already shut down the library back in 2016 after they found out it was infested with mold. But nobody bothered to tell the squatters. As part of the clearance operation, an officer watched the live stream from the library's security cameras all night long. Nothing unusual happened until 3:17 a.m. Suddenly, a strange figure appeared in the center of one of the feeds, but this wasn't your average trespasser. This person didn't have a face, only a pair of soulless black eyes. Their skin was chalk white, almost translucent, and their body looked strangely stiff and distorted. But these weren't the stranger things about them. What really stood out about this trespasser was that they seemed to emerge out of thin air. When the officer watched the replay, he noticed that the figure was standing in front of a shelf full of books in one moment and suddenly vanished in the next. It wasn't clear how long this trespasser had been standing there or why they were standing there in the first place. Did they materialize out of nowhere? Were they always there and the camera just malfunctioned? The police couldn't say. All they knew was that the library was supposedly cleared of trespassers. So the next morning, they sent a team to investigate. Unfortunately, they didn't find any signs of forced entry, and there was nothing out of the ordinary to be seen. However, while reviewing the footage later, another officer noticed that the anomaly showed up on the same exact date last year. Well, it's not every day that you stumble upon a ghost, so the police decided to investigate further. In total, 3 officers volunteered for the investigation, each tasked with watching a different camera feed for anomalies. Sure enough, the next night at 3:17 a.m., the figure appeared again. And the following night, it reappeared yet again. It was becoming clearer and clearer that this was no ordinary ghost, but we shouldn't jump the gun. This was all circumstantial evidence. Even if this was a ghost, how did it get there? And why was it always at 3:17 a.m.? To answer those questions, the officers set up camp in the library and waited for the next 3:17 a.m. As the clock struck 3:17 a.m., the officers were ready. They immediately noticed that the specter appeared on the same feed as before, but it also seemed to have moved. It was no longer standing in the middle of the archive, but it was walking down the hallway toward the entrance. It stopped right outside the door and waited for a few seconds before disappearing. Although the door was locked when the officers went to check, they found it wide open. They searched the area but found nothing out of the ordinary. Still, they continued to watch the camera overnight in case the ghost came back, but it never did. Naturally, this was a bit disappointing, but it wasn't the end of the road. Thanks to modern technology, the police could always go back and review the old footage, so they checked to see if the ghost had been appearing on other nights. They combed through the footage and discovered that the specter was only appearing on the nights of October. Now, we don't know if these ghosts are aware of the Gregorian calendar, but if they are, they sure do love making appointments at 3:17 a.m. on October. For some reason, the ghost would appear on the same camera angle at 3:17 a.m. on October, rain or shine. And no matter what the police did, they couldn't make it stop. Eventually, the police gave up, but fortunately, the curious minds behind the channel Top 5 Scary Videos took up their cause. These amateur paranormal investigators decided to visit the library and record the ghost for themselves. Unlike the police, they managed to capture the ghost on camera, which is good because we got our hands on that footage. Looking at the tape, we can see that the apparition appears right in the middle of the screen. We can't see its face, but its stiff posture and unnatural stillness speak volumes. And we must admit that the show is pretty convincing, but that doesn't mean it's real. There are plenty of people who have come forward claiming that this is just another viral hoax. For example, Reddit user murky_ad_7313 argued that the ghost isn't even in the video at all. Instead, it's reflected in a nearby surface. In fact, that seems to be the prevailing sentiment among the comment section. Most people are calling it fake, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. A lot of people claim that this video is fake, but they haven't considered the alternative. What if this is the only real ghost video we have? After all, this is the only time we've seen an apparition move toward the camera, turn around, and walk away. It might be blurry, it might be grainy, but it's too organic to be fake. We have no idea what this ghost looks like or where it went after it left the library, but it definitely existed. But whether it exists now is an entirely different story. Some say that when ghosts enter the camera, they cease to exist, but others believe that they stay put. And if that's true, then maybe the ghost is still waiting for us to come back. Maybe it's still waiting for someone to finish the movie. If you want to see it for yourself, though, you're going to need more than just curiosity. You'll also need some steel in your spine and maybe a priest on speed dial. Then again, that goes for all haunted places. If you're wondering, the library was demolished on January 16, 2025, but before that, people reported seeing the ghost for the last time on New Year's Eve. Perhaps the ghost finally found peace after the library was torn down. Or perhaps it's still searching for its way out. As for the original video, it's still available on YouTube, but it's been taken private. If you're wondering why, it's probably because the owner doesn't want to deal with the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Also, feel free to drop a comment or suggestion down below. Who knows, you might see your name in the next video. See you next time!